Jonathan Miller on X says, you seem like you've turned against Donald Trump quite a bit and the MAGA movement quite a bit in the last little bit. Is that the case, and why? And the truth is nobody was a bigger proponent of Donald Trump and the MAGA movement, especially in the early 2016, the early pre-presidency, early campaign days, because he was making a lot of promises and alluding to a lot of things that really stirred the base, that stirred the MAGA base. And let's not forget who the MAGA base was, right? This was the Tea Party people. This was the white conservative Christian people from around Middle America, from around the South, the people who we call heritage Americans, people who had a long archive of familial ancestry in this country, right? And he appealed heavily to these individuals. He appealed heavily to me. I mean, I've had family in this country since the Revolutionary War. Now, I've obviously had some Irish immigrant family that came much more recent than that. But I have had family in this country that have been in fought since the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, the American Civil War, World War I, World War II. Even my Uncle David was in Vietnam. My cousin Patrick was killed in Afghanistan. And it's one of those things where there's so much familial investment from people like ourselves that we expect some kind of return eventually, right? We eventually want to see some kind of return on our vote, and every year it's the same thing. It's, make sure to turn out in November. Make sure, because this is the biggest election ever. This is going to be the biggest election cycle of our lifetime. I mean, if you don't vote Kamala Harris out, my God, what's going to happen to America? And of course, I agree, she's a detrimental disaster to basically any government that she touches. Even back in her old California politician days, she completely decimated the legal system there. But so anything would have been better than her. But of course, we want to see some return on our voting investment at some point. We've been promised a white identity that hasn't ever been allowed to come to fruition. I mean, even to the point that J.D. Vance won't even mention the word white. Donald Trump won't even say white. He'll say these Western ideals, these Western civilization ideals, but he won't say white. And why is that? I mean, we are a people. We are a people, and we may not be indigenous in the same way that the American Indian is indigenous, but after you've been here since, some of us have been here since the 1600s, right? 1520 is when the Mayflower showed up, right? So some people have been here for half a millennia now. Centuries. In the familial ancestral line. And there's got to be something for us. There's got to be something attractive for us to vote for. There's got to be something that is attractively responsive for the white Christian straight male voter base to say, hey, I want someone to represent me. I want mass deportations. I want an immigration moratorium. Because if you look at the way the civilizations, not just in America, but in every single white country, whether it be in Paris, in France, in Berlin, in Germany, in London, in England, everything that was white was safe. Everything that was Western centrist was safe. Everything that was an extension of Christian religion was safe. And of course you're going to have caveats within any of that. Of course you're going to have downfalls. You're going to have crime. You're going to have singularity and criminal observation in anything that you do. But by and away, it didn't look like Somalia. It didn't look like Mexico City. It didn't look like Mogadishu. It didn't look like Ethiopia. It didn't look like downtown Iraq. It didn't look like Tehran, Iran. And it didn't look like a lot of places in Asia that I won't go into. But the thing is as we import more of those people, we lose that identity. We lose that American heritage identity that is an extension of the English common law system. That is an extension of the Anglo-Saxon ideals. Now, I'm not even an Anglo-Saxon, right? I did one of those genetics tests, and it said that I was like 80% Celtic from Scotland and Ireland, and then Scandinavian, and then some other things. But if you think about us as America as an extension of the English common law system for every single state except for Louisiana, which is an extension of the Napoleonic Code, then we, at a legal level, at a civic level, we adhere to the Anglo-Saxon rule of law that came from the Magna Carta. And things were safe when we did. At an identity level, all of our nursery rhymes, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Baa Baa Black Sheep, Mother Goose, those are all extensions of the fables that came out of the English poetic systems. We are an extension of the English system at large. And to turn our back on that and say, no. Now we're going to a more diverse future where we include people from India, in Iraq, in Somalia, where in Somalia they push 5-year-old boys off the top tier floor at the Mall of America, and in Dayton, Ohio, the Haitians shit in the fucking street and they eat the dogs and cats. And by the way, we were all pulled to that rallying cry during the 2024 election where we were told, oh yeah, of course, the Haitians in Springfield, Ohio are eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. And now Trump doesn't mention that anymore. Now Trump, has he deported any of them? Has he passed any legislation? Has he done anything federally or administered any state incentives to stop the brutalities that are still happening? You ask anybody there in Springfield, Ohio, they were used as a voting manipulation ploy by the right-wing conservative party to rally white people to their cause. But at the end of the day, they really haven't shown any care of the white race in this country. They've shown no care of us. They've shown no interest to even say the name white. So how are we not supposed to feel neglected? How are we not supposed to feel like we are second-class citizens in the country and in the civilization that our forefathers built from nothing? We tamed the West. We conquered the Indians. We moved westward, young man, with manifest destiny. In 1848, we went to war against Santa Anna and Maximilian Habsburg to buy pieces of Texas, or to win pieces of Texas from Mexico. And yet we get nothing from it. But then as we start to bomb Iran, then as we start to talk about wars and rumors of wars, what do we get again? We get the great Toby Keith line, we're going to shove a boot up your ass in America's Statue of Liberty, and all that crazy kind of shit that rallies the sub-IQ white man from the trailer park to go join the Marine Corps and then be vaccinated for the first couple of weeks in boot camp until his immune system's almost completely compromised, and then go fight and die as a pawn in some war that he doesn't even really understand, only to be working like the guy I saw at Costco today. I go into Costco today, and there's a guy with a cane and a United States Marine Corps lanyard and a United States Marine Corps hat and a United States Marine Corps tattoo, checking out groceries and breaking his back, helping people get out the door at Costco. And obviously, in his shirt says, his little tag says Marine Corps, United States Vietnam vet. And he's an older guy. And you could tell he's suffering. You can tell he's broken down. He's aching in his bones. And he's working at fucking Costco. But all the people I see in the Costco are Indians and Hispanics and people of color from other countries. And they're reaping the benefit of this country. They're reaping the benefit of that man's hard work. They're reaping the benefit of everything that we were seduced into giving our spiritual and physical input towards, with the promise of, and I don't say this in the Economic Governmental Bureau department when I say Social Security, but the security of the sociality of our government at large, that we would have a place in the destiny in the country that our forefathers built. And what we see is we have no place. What we see is that if you abide by the law as a white man, if you go to college, do everything right, you're still forced to the edge of the economy. You still have to come home and see TV where there's no white people that represent you in commercials, and if it is, it's a white woman with a black man, and the kids are mixed and they don't look like you. We're told that we have a white guy who's going to represent us because he's an Appalachian individual just like you and me, and that's J.D. Vance, but he has no future, a progeny for children like mine or like yours, because his children are brown. He married some stank-ass Jeep from India whose grandparents are probably doing scams in some call center. So how could he ever identify with what we see for the future of our children? How could J.D. Vance, who's supposed to be one of us, ever see eye to eye the same way we see eye to eye with the future of America that is inclusive, and not just inclusive, but morality compassed towards the white ideals that our grandfathers and forefathers made for us? He can't. But yet, in 2028, next election cycle, what will they say? This is the most important election, young white man. make sure to go get vaccinated and run to the polls and vote for J.D. Vance. So the original question that was framed to me on X by this user on Twitter, formerly X, formerly Twitter, is, it seems like you've turned against MAGA. It seems like you've turned against Donald Trump. And of course, like I said before previously, I was the biggest MAGA supporter. I was the biggest Tea Party guy. I was the biggest Donald Trump supporter that you would have ever found before. But it seems like every single time they take AIPAC money, they'll say Western ideals, they'll say Western civilizations, but they won't say white. And I am white. And I have white children. And I want to see a future for white children. I don't want to obfuscate the topic. I don't want to subjugate this intellectual property into something that it is not. I want to categorically be represented for my needs, for my wants, and for my investment, not just my investment, but for my patrilineal and matrilineal investment into this institution that we call America. And what do I mean by that? I want to see recompense. You always see this in the black community. When is their reparations going to come? They always say, what about reparations? We need reparations. Okay. But if we're starting to give recompense-based investment returns, what about the hundreds of years of white men who built these countries out of timber, mud, dirt, and stone, who raised the skyscrapers, who fought in every American war, who pledged allegiance to the flag, who got up every day and invested themselves into the workforce, who raised good children, who made sure that their neighborhoods had low crime by investing in the greatness of their progeny? When is there going to be a return for us? Because ever since 1963, when Lyndon Baines Johnson went to Ellis Island and created the new Immigration Act, we went from a 92% white country now down to a 49% white country in just a matter of a few decades, and no one cares about us anymore. We are told from the time we are children by these stupid fucking baby boomer teachers that came out of the 60s revolution era that you need to control your masculinity. Why would I let some man in Washington, D.C. tell me what to do with my body? You white men, oh my God. And we get told this shit from the time we're in kindergarten till the time we graduate high school. And if they can't control our masculinity, if they can't subdue us enough in these government-ran institutions that they call school by either placing some stupid cunt bitch feminist teacher over top of us to keep us trifled in our place, or by integrating us with the most ghetto schools around us so that we equilateralize the IQ of our community with Tyrone and Jamarcus, then they just give us meds. If they can't break us down sociologically, physiologically, psychologically as young white men from the time we're in kindergarten all the way up until we graduate high school, then what do? They give us Ritalin. They give us Adderall. They give us Vyvanse. They give us levmethamphetamine, amphetamine salt D. And then by the time we graduate high school, what are we? We are yet another consumer. We are yet another customer of Big Pharma, because now our body is physiologically and neurologically dependent upon these chemicals just to be able to keep going. All why? Because some teacher said we were too hyper. Because we showed too much enthusiasm. So yeah, I guess I have turned against Donald Trump a bit. I guess I have turned against MAGA a bit. Do I regret voting for Donald Trump instead of Kamala Harris? No, because at least she's gone, and she doesn't have the right, the power, or the influence over our judicial system, our executive system that she would have had as a president with that kind of power, that kind of influence to cross-branch influence and force vaccine mandates, and force DEI federally, and force open borders. So at least that's there. But we were promised a whole different scenario. We were promised a scenario where the border gets shut down and we get mass deportations on day one. Well, day one rolls around and they say, hey, it's day one, bro. Give us a chance. We haven't even moved our shit into the White House. Well, it's day two now. Now we're 7-8 months in. Now we're 9 months in. Now we're 2 years in. Now we're at the end of the presidency, and there's only been what? 800,000? There's only been 700,000 there will only be 700,000 deportations by the end of the 4-year term, if we stay on the trajectory that we are. But by the way, we're not staying on that trajectory. Each day we do less and less and least more deportations. So at a maximum, if we are lucky, we're going to see 800,000 deportations over a 4-year period. That's if we're lucky. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris let 10 million illegal aliens into this country. 10 million illegal aliens into this country. Those people got to go. Those people got to go. Their kids got to go. And as white people, they're going to say again, go vote for Vance in 2028. He's one of you. His kids don't look like my kids. His wife don't look like my wife. Go vote for J.D. Vance. He's an American, a true patriot American. He was in the Marine. He's a Manchurian candidate. He won't even say the word white. He won't even mention us. If you are, and like the Bible, like Jesus says in the Bible, if you're ashamed of me in this world, I'll be ashamed of you in front of my Father. Well, if you're ashamed of me, J.D. Vance, if you're ashamed of my white community that you came out of, then we're ashamed of you too, and we don't want to vote for you. By the way, if you read his book, in the book, there's an afterword, and it talks about matrilineal abuse, right? So abuse that come from mother to mother to mother, and then finally to him. And if you read his book, Hillbilly Elegy, you'll see that, yeah, he or watch the movie Hillbilly Elegy, which Amy Adams played his mother and was very abusive. You'll see that he did grow up in an abusive home, according to the book, and he was really disdained by his mother's appearance, disdained by his mother's behavior, disdained by his mother's actions. And they say he was so repulsed by his mother that he could never marry a white woman. So that's when he went to Yale and married Usha Vance. And I get that to some degree. I get that a burnt chicken hates the fire, and you do feel a little bit scarred, maybe, by the abuse you had to endure by your mother. But how much do you have to hate white women to destroy your bloodline? How much do you have to hate your own people to start picking these shit stink Pajeets that come in here over your own people who have been here for 500 years, some of them, most of them around 310 years. How much do you have to hate us? And then you beg for our vote in November? Then you beg for us to run to the polls? And this is the most important election of our lifetime. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear you ask white people for our votes until, one, we hear the words immigration moratorium. That means not another immigrant of any kind is let into this country until we settle up what we have now. 2, we stop the anchor baby process. The birthright citizenship has to stop fucking yesterday. We can't allow people to come here on pregnancy tourism, have a baby, and then all of a sudden they're a citizen. It's got to stop. And by the way, is that to say that we hate Hispanics? Is that to say that we hate Indians or blacks or anybody else? No, it doesn't say that at all. As Christians, we're not allowed to do that. That is illegal. By the way, the Lord's law trumps all civic law, all civic structure, all state code. And the Lord tells us very clearly that we don't have the opportunity or right to hate and still belong in the Holy Communion of His church. We don't have that opportunity. We don't have that right. So no, we don't hate these people. We don't hate these people. And by the way, I go to Mexico and I hang out with Mexicans. I love them. They're great people, wonderful people. I want them to stay in Mexico because I don't want this country to turn into that. I go to the Dominican Republic. I sit on the beach. I hang out. I drink a beer, and it's wonderful, wonderful people there. I want them to stay in the Dominican Republic. I want them to make their own country great. Access to the fruits of the labor of white people is not a universal right. Access to white people is not a universal right. Access to the intellectual property and the barrens thereof is not an international right. You do not have the right to move into our neighborhoods just because you like what we are doing. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. If you can't get a real loan, a non-FHA subsidized loan, then you don't have the right to be with us. If you don't have any skin in the game of the system of America, in the institution of America, then you shouldn't have the right to vote here. And this is why it is of paramount importance, of titanic importance, that we stop immigration. Because if you look at the mayoral race of the biggest city in America, which is New York City, what you see is Mamdani, a communist, Middle Eastern-born Muslim, is going to win the mayoral race of New York City, and have complete control. This man, who should never be in this country in the first place, is going to be the mayor of 8 million American citizens. And what? Do you think he's going to start to change his ideals to be more white inclusive? No, he just got through saying that whites should pay more taxes. He is a proponent of the system that hates us, that wants to subjugate us, that wants to dispossess us. So when you say, when the old boomers, they always say, the old rhino boomers, the old MAGA boomers, they always say, well, I like immigration as long as it's legal immigration. I like immigration as long as it's legal immigration. If they come legally, that's okay. No. We need an immigration moratorium starting effective immediately. Because whether they are legal or not legal, they are not within the scope of identity that you and I were raised in. And therefore, they are only a mechanism sent as a replacement. They are only a mechanism of replacement to replace you with someone who doesn't believe like you, with someone who doesn't look like you, with someone who doesn't want the same future for your children that you do. And when you let enough of them in, when you couple democracy, which I hate the word democracy. I hate the word democracy. Oh, you're a communist? No, I am a Republican. Both in Ireland, I'm an Irish Republican, and in America, I am an American Republican. And quite frankly, if I'm being as honest as I can, I'm moving towards ethno-nationalist. Because when you see what happens in Denmark, Norway, and all the Scandinavian countries, they had socialism. They had ethnic national socialism for decades after World War II, and everything was fine. Everything was great. This was the only time socialism has worked since Rabbi Morenstein gave that notion to Karl Marx and he wrote the Communist Manifesto. And it was sort of a capitalistic notion of socialism, not the true authoritarian notion, but it was still socialism nonetheless. But it worked. And why did it work? It worked because it was an ethnocentric situation where Scandinavian people of kiss and kin, of folk and tradition looked out for each other because they knew each other and they were on a positive trajectory to ensure the future of one another. It doesn't work anymore though. Why? Because Denmark, Sweden, and Norway imported the third world. They imported Turkey, they imported Somalia, they imported Ethiopia, and now there's rape capitals. Before, you had civic cities with beautiful architecture, horticulture, civic design, and a history and heritage that was unmatched in beauty. But now, you have rape capitals, no-go zones, welfare states, and a crumbling society. Immigration moratorium. Stop the immigration today. Go further and send back all 10 million people who committed the crime of illegal border crossing. If you tell me some dumb shit, if you tell me some retarded shit about asylum seekers and people who are trying to find a better life, I'm trying to find a better life. We just come to America because we just want to have a better life. We don't want to hurt nobody. We want to have a better life. I want to have a better life. And my life at this age is halfway over. So it's really of no justice or no consequence for me to soapbox about the rest of my life. But what I can say is I want a better life for my children, reflective of the Caucasian identity that spawned this great nation. The Christian Caucasian ethnicity and identity that spawned this great nation. That's what I want. That's what the mass majority of people in Denmark wanted. That's what the mass majority of people in Norway wanted. That's what the mass majority of people in Iceland and Sweden and Austria and Poland wanted. And it is only those countries in Europe who have implemented a retroactive moratorium on immigration. And what does that mean? That means they went back in time, looked at all the visas of all the people that came into this country, and they sent out the ones who they deemed undesirable. And you may say, well, Donald Trump's doing that now. Yeah, he is doing that now. Let me give a big clap for him. You know who he's doing that to? The people who talk bad about Israel. If you disrespect Israel, then you get moratorium. Then you get repatriated. If you disrespect the Jewish people, the Israeli first, Jewish first, not America first, Zionist first government, then you get repatriated. Then you get deported. And now we were promised free speech.